What are the key messages and why are we actually here? And you know, it's actually remarkably simple. If you look at what environmental groups have been doing over the last few decades, they've been raising awareness of the need to protect and safeguard natural forests. And one of the ways of doing that is reducing demand. And what we've got from Drax is opening up the biggest new demand you can imagine. Just this one power station, the Drax power station, will use 1.6 times the entire UK wood production. That's all the wood we produce for paper, pulp and all other wood products, 1.6 times over. And of course, what we produce is already spoken for many times over anyway. So it will all come from abroad. And where will it come from? It'll come from places like Canada, North America, that's where it's coming from at the moment. But that's not going to last forever. And we're starting to see new bilateral deals occurring between biomass providers in the UK and suppliers in different countries. And which are those countries who are intending to supply in years to come? Well, they're countries like Brazil and West Africa, the Congo Basin. These are really concerning areas. They're some of the richest forests of the world are going to be felled, and it's going to be replaced with is genetically modified eucalyptus. Now, they're very fast growing, but they're biologically completely dead. So that has a tremendous implication if you're concerned about biodiversity, if you're concerned about the dwindling of natural forests. So to call this green energy is really a fallacy. But that's not the only reason it's a fallacy. Some of you may know that burning wood produces 50% more greenhouse gases than burning coal for the equivalent amount of energy output. So, the peer-reviewed study, science on this is very robust now. It's coming out from several sources, and these sources we're putting on the table of Drax and asking them to take a look at it, and it's being completely ignored. Interestingly enough, it's also going to DEC and asking them to say why are they subsidising this kind of switch, and of course it's being ignored. So we're now in a situation where people in influence want to believe the science that they want to believe. They don't want to believe the real science. So these are the real simple concerns to realise, that the scale of biomass is so large that sustainability, but making it sustainable, using sustainability standards becomes irrelevant. And the pollution, of course, is 50% of that of coal. If you can remember those two things, I think you can have a very good conversation with people. But actually there's one other thing I'd like to tell you about, and that is the impact that this is having on peoples. Not just peoples in the developing world, but peoples over here. So let's start with the developing world. Many of you will know that the rush for liquid biofuels over the last 6 years has caused an unprecedented land grab. Well, this is kicking off again now with this rush to biomass. As power stations are being authorised to burn biomass, we're seeing lands being confiscated from people being driven off them, and they become migrants, biofuel refugees. These people have no means to feed themselves because their own land has been taken from them. And as you can imagine, human rights abuses occur routinely. So when we support Drax and other coal-fired power stations who should be closing but are instead converting to so-called green energy in that false definition, are actually contributing to this kind of destruction of human communities. Now, the problems continue over the UK as well, because anyone who lives near one of these biomass power stations is going to face the full onslaught of noxious emissions. And I'm talking about two particular noxious emissions besides sulfur dioxide. One is nitrous oxides, and the other is particulate emissions from carbon. These microparticulates, sometimes known as PM2.5s, but there are other sizes involved as well, get stuck in the bronchial pathway in the body. They also affect the cardiovascular system. And the combination of the two, nitrous oxides and particulates, has an impact that can reduce life expectancy by several years. So somebody living within the vicinity of the power station, breathing in biomass dust, breathing in these noxious nitrous oxides, will find that they could be living several years less than their natural life expectancy. I believe that people have the right to know this. I believe that people's health should be safeguarded, and I'm pleased to see that you've all come out as well to support this effort. So we're trying to challenge it in terms of climate change. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense in terms of forest destruction. It doesn't make sense in terms of biodiversity loss, and it certainly doesn't make sense in terms of the abuse of indigenous communities and farming communities in the developed world, as well as people who live within the vicinity of the power station over here. So thanks for listening to that. There's lots of other things to say, lots of other things to to share. We'd like to have as many of you take to the microphone as possible and share your views. Some people have come from very far afield. We've got one gentleman here from Cornwall, an organic farm, who's come all that distance just because he feels that this is one thing that shouldn't happen in the UK. Thanks very much.